What's up? I'm Sydalexandria, and if you guys are new here, welcome. If you have been here before, you know a little bit about me, then you probably know that I have had a long time fascination with the concept of past lives, and now I am a full believer, and it's because of stories like this one, which we're about to get into. Whether or not you agree or believe with this lady's story, she is a well-known and respected Egyptologist. She has made discoveries that only someone with prior knowledge could have made. So let's get into it. Dorothy Louise Eady was born January 16th, 1904 to Reuben and Caroline Eady. They were a middle-class family in London. Dorothy was an only child, and at the age of 3, she had an incident where she fell down the stairs and was knocked unconscious. Her parents were super scared. They called the doctor, and the doctor actually pronounced Dorothy dead. After about an hour of Dorothy's alleged passing, her parents and the doctor found her sitting on her bed playing as if nothing had happened. Her parents were obviously like, what the heck? Didn't you just say our daughter was dead? And the doctor swears that she was. So after that, Dorothy was very healthy, but she developed foreign accent syndrome. She was talking in this accent which she had never spoken in before. Dorothy would also talk about wanting to go home, which she had never talked about before this incident. So her parents were like, you are home. You've never had any other home. We've never lived anywhere else. This is your home. But Dorothy kept on saying, no, this isn't my real home. I want to go to my real home. She would have these dreams of this building, this huge building with pillars and a beautiful garden, and she insisted that this place in her dreams was her home. Her mom would find her crying before going to bed or after waking up because she missed this place so much and she had no clue where it was. Dorothy's parents took her to the British Museum in London, and like many museums, they had an exhibit on ancient Egypt. So as soon as they got to the entrance area of this exhibit, Dorothy runs full steam ahead right for it, and she starts crying and proclaiming that I'm home, and she starts kissing the feet of these statues, and she's like, these are my people, I am home. So of course everyone else in the museum is like, what the heck? And Dorothy's parents are just like, I don't know, man. So Dorothy had a blast at this ancient Egyptian exhibit, and her parents probably had a super hard time getting her home when they closed. So after that, Dorothy had realized now that this place in her dreams that she misses is in fact ancient Egypt, and she becomes obsessed. Dorothy's parents were Catholic, so they went to church on Sundays, and Dorothy went to Sunday school until she got kicked out for repeatedly comparing Christianity to other ancient Egyptian religions. So then she just started going to the regular old church service on Sundays with her parents until she got kicked out of church altogether. Dorothy also went to a Catholic school until she got kicked out for refusing to sing certain hymns that offended Egyptians. At the age of just 6, Dorothy became very interested in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and said that they were very familiar to her. She had just forgotten how to read them. A little bit later, at the age of 7, she was actually learning ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics from her teacher, a well-known Egyptologist, E.A. Wallace Budge. And she said that she wasn't learning, she was simply remembering. Very similar to what she said before. And her teacher actually said that she picked up on hieroglyphics extremely easily and quickly. Also at the age of 7, Dorothy was in her now public school looking through a textbook, and she found a picture of the Temple of Seti I in Abydos, Egypt. So this is in the picture, and she immediately knew that this was the building with the pillars and the garden from her dreams. However, in the textbook picture, there was no garden, just the remains of it. So as a 7-year-old, she's like, where's the garden? She also saw a picture of King Seti I's mummy and immediately knew that she knew him. Fast forward to age 14, Dorothy was having these repeating nightmares where she was in this partially underground building and she was being questioned by this woman, this high priestess. And in the dreams, she wouldn't answer the woman's questions, so she was beaten. At the age of 27, Dorothy meets this Egyptian man who was in London studying, and they get married, and guess what they do? They immediately move to Egypt after their wedding. So this was the first time Dorothy had ever been in Egypt this life, and as soon as she gets off the plane, she drops down to her knees, kisses the ground, and says, "I am home, baby." So now that she's living in Egypt, in the middle of the night, she would partially wake up. She would be in these trance-like states, channeling information from Hora, from Seti I. She would be writing down all of these ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, and she would get all of this information about her past life as a woman named Bentrashi in ancient Egypt. Hora said that Bentrashi's mother was a vegetable seller, her father was a soldier, and her mother died when she was really young, so her father, unable to care for her, gave her to the temple of Seti I, where all of these high priestesses raised her. So then at the age of 12, Bentrashi was given the choice whether or not she wanted to leave the temple and venture out, or if she wanted to stay and give an oath of virginity. So after a little bit of contemplating, she said, "I'm gonna stay," and she gave this oath of virginity. Well, then she meets King Seti I himself, and they have an affair. So Bentrashi gets pregnant by Seti I, and once a high priestess finds out at the temple, they start questioning Bentrashi, are you pregnant? Did you have sex? All of these questions. And she does not want to ruin King Seti I's reputation. So she doesn't answer, and she lets them beat her, and she ends up committing suicide over this, which is eerily similar to these repeating nightmares that she has had since she was 14, right? Meanwhile, Dorothy's husband is over here like, my wife is waking up every night in the middle of the night in this trance-like state and writing down all these hieroglyphics, and I don't know what it means, and I can't stop her. She's just going, she's just writing. Once Dorothy was in this trance-like state in the middle of the night, there was no stopping her. She was just going. So Dorothy and her husband end up having a son, and they name him, guess what it is? Take a guess. Seti. So I guess also the fact that, his wife is up in the middle of the night channeling ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, and they named their son after her past life lover. It was all a bit too much for him because he ended up filing for divorce in 1936. So then Dorothy, aka now Omm Sety, which she goes by, which means the mother of Seti, Omm Sety now, Dorothy, and her son Seti end up moving. So now that they're living in Giza, Omm Sety gets this job at Egyptian's Department of Antiquities, and this is where her really groundbreaking work starts taking off. Because before, she would get all of this amazing information that was more personal about herself, but now she is really putting that into life in Egypt in general and uncovering information that is more important or more useful for the masses. So there's already chatter of how Omm Sety is pretty weird. She goes by Omm Sety, just a little different than most people. And one of her higher-ups at this new job wants to kind of give her a little test. So he takes her to this tomb, and the artwork inside has never been published anywhere. It's super dark inside this tomb. They don't bring any lights. And he asks her to tell him what the artwork on the walls looks like. And she can't see because it's way too dark, and she correctly identifies each of the pieces of artwork, and there was no way of her knowing what it was because, like I said, they didn't publish it anywhere yet. So for 20 years, Omm Sety researched the temple of Pharaoh Seti I. 20 years! One building mainly. Okay, she researched some other things, but it was mainly just Temple of Seti I. That was her job. That's what she researched for 20 years. And she had never even been there yet. Even though she lives in Egypt, she was living in Giza at this time until she gets a job transfer in 1952 when she is 50 years old. Almost 50. So this new job is in Abydos, Egypt, where the temple of Pharaoh Seti I is, and she gets there for the first time, and the first thing she says is, "It's as if I've lived here before." Like, girl, you know you've lived there before, okay? This is what your whole life revolves around. Anyways, she is this well-known Egyptologist at this point, so she actually gets to set up an office in this temple. She gets to work at this old place that she lived, so she is loving this. Don't get me wrong, people still thought she was weird, a little off the walls, like she had this pet cobra. Well, it wasn't really a pet, okay? It was her friend. She had this friend, cobra, snake, that would live like outside of the temple of Pharaoh Seti I, and she would feed it every day. She had a friend snake. I love it. Regardless of the weird factor about her to other people, they had to accept that she had extreme knowledge of ancient Egypt, and in particular the temple of Seti I, because once she got this job transfer, she said, "This plant is right there. This plant is right there." There's no plants anymore, like it's a desert, okay? The plants are gone. The garden around this temple, like she would see in these dreams, is now gone. There's just these like ruins, these remains of this garden, right? So she tells scientists, like, yeah, there was this type of plant right there. So they dug right there and they found remnants of that specific type of plant in all of these different spots. They reconstructed on paper, not in real life, this garden. And everything she said that was there was once there, scientifically proven. I think that is super amazing. She said that there was a tunnel on the north side of the temple. So they dug where she said on the north side of the temple, boom, there's a tunnel. She also said that there was a tomb in the Valley of the Kings that was thought to have already been fully excavated. Well, they dug down right where she said there was a tomb, undiscovered. That is what she is probably most well known for, is that tomb in the Valley of the Kings discovery that she said to look for. And on her deathbed, you guys, this is what I think is pretty interesting. On top of all of this other stuff we have, on her deathbed, at the age of 81, Omm Sety says that there is a secret underneath the temple of Seti I, and we have yet to discover what that secret is. Peace out.